this is just an exercise. One of my friends passed me this backend. We cannot see the URLs right now because I didn't want to share it before asking him. So I'm just trying to create services for signing up, logging in, and updating authentication, deleting authentication, logging out, then creating tasks and updating all these tasks, and so many services. Then I just get really confused, guys.
All right, so you need to log in, log out, like so manage the session, and also you need to get some kind of token from the API and pass this token around for any new requests you make after you logged in.
Yes.
Okay. So the functionalities you have right now is the sign in, log in, sign up, log in, and the update.
Yes, and delete should be there too, I guess. And it's
Delete
also
and log
needs.
out. Okay.
Okay.
So we can only update the user or delete that account after you either created an account or you logged in with an existing account.
Yes, that is correct. Because I need a token from the service.
Log out as well. We need to pass a token to invalidate that session, right? Okay, so that's an exercise project. And what is the issue you're having with these services?
So the thing is, the login and sign up doesn't need a token, obviously. But when I try to write the update and delete one, then I'm gonna add this logout, then the other things for the creating the to-do and updating the to-do and deleting the to-do list. Then I just get confused how to pass the token, because I cannot test the token if the token is there in my unit test, and end-to-end tests working fine, but I'm not sure is it correct or not, because I'm just passing a test request with the token. I mean, it's obviously returned me an error if the token is not there, but I
Yes.
just want to learn how can I do better.
So the login request and the sign up request doesn't require a token. But any other request requires the token, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Any other request will require the token. Okay, so let's look at a request. So the login request doesn't require a token, right? You just have a client, and when you perform the login, what does it do? You just map the response.
Yes. I create that private function secure URL request queue because I just want to call one time. I don't want to make multiple calls. I don't know, is this the way, but this was my solution.
So who creates the URL request? Let's say I want to use this service. Who would use this service in your application?
Right now, I don't understand what do you mean exactly. I'm sorry.
Right. So you have this API, right, that you can perform a request, and you have an authentication service interface.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have anyone using this request so we can find selected text in workspace? Is there anyone using this interface here? Like a view controller, a view
No.
model?
Except the tests.
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
It just, yes.
But eventually someone will use this service to
Yes.
perform some requests. Okay. Because my question here, why am I asking this? Because I want to know who's responsible for creating the request, right? Whoever uses this service needs to create the request, the URL request. So if I want to log in, for example, I think this interface is too generic for an authentication service. because you passing the responsibility of creating the URL request to whoever uses this authentication service. Maybe this should be an implementation detail. For example, have a authenticate request or login request, for example, right? Here you can have, for example, if it's a username password based authentication, define your login request, the details that your service needs to perform that request, and the clients just need to pass this. So for example, the view controller or a view model will only collect the username and password from the user, and you pass that to the service.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you go to the authentication feature and helpers? I create this thing. I was using this before. With this thing, I could test, but I was passing the same thing you just did. I was passing this thing there, but I wasn't sure. Then I changed the URL request again.
Right, because I prefer it like this, and then you can encapsulate inside this authentication service implementation how to create the URL request, right? Because there will be a bunch of details in there that you don't want your clients being responsible for creating the request. You need to decide the URL, you need to decide the HTTP method, the headers, a bunch of things that moving this responsibility to a client of the service may move too much responsibility to this client, right? Because it's not that easy to create that request. You need to have a bunch of API details in there. You need to know the URL you're making the request to. You need to know the header values, any kind of body parameters like the JSON schema. There's a bunch of details that ideally should be hidden from the clients. So the clients just pass the data the service needs. If it's a login request, you can pass just a username and password.
Okay.
Right? So now the implementation is responsible for creating the URL. So the implementation here will be something like this, URL request. And here, the implementation is responsible for creating the request from the user data, right? So the request now will be a URL request, and we will pass here the URL. You will set headers, URL request dot set value. I don't know, any kind of headers that you need to pass here, right? Any API secret, any kind of details can be passed here. So you hide those from your clients. Make your API easier to use. Make sense?
Yes.
So this is one thing. Now, when you're testing, what you will do is this an interface, the HTTP client?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So when you're testing, you will instantiate your service, you will pass some kind of client spy. And when you call the perform with a given login request, you will get the URL request that was created and check the values in there. Does it have the right headers? Does it have the right body? Does it have the right like query parameters? You know, whatever makes sense, you can test that the URL formed here was correct. Right, so that's how you can test it.
Yeah, thanks for explaining, Caio.
Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So here you can also set cache policies, time intervals, like all those details can be set here as well. And you can test because let's have a look at the test. Are you capturing the? Yes. For example, here, how this will work now, you will create a login request with a username, and a password, and you will pass the login request instead of a URL request. This will generate a URL request passed to the client, and then you can get this request and check the values in there, right? And you create one assertion for the headers, one assertion for the URL, and so on.
So for every service, I need specific request, then I can check any of them in separately.
Yes, because every endpoint will have its own details, right?
Yeah.
Like a path, for example. One endpoint would be /login. The other one would be /signup, right? They are specific to each endpoint. For example, here you can check that the path is /login, for example, if that's what it should be. So let's have a look again at the service. Yeah, so the login authentication service conforms to authentication service. Yeah. And this response is a struct. Okay. You get the email token back. So the response is good. It's not exposing any details about HTTP responses and so on. So the clients will pass a pure data structure here without any details about the endpoint, and we'll get back a response with exactly what it needs, an email and a token, and that's it. All the implementation details of this communication with the backend is hidden in the implementation.
Okay.
In here. Okay, so that's the exercise.